the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. The President and the Israeli Prime Minister meet in the Oval Office, and then the Prime Minister heads to AIPAC, while these women are becoming Orthodox Jewish basketball superstars. And more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met in the Oval Office of the White House this week. In comments to the press, they emphasized the friendship between the two countries and spoke about Iran, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, and Syria. The president said he has, quote, an absolute commitment to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Here's President Obama on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process.
I want to commend publicly the efforts that Prime Minister Netanyahu has made in very lengthy and painstaking negotiations with my Secretary of State, John Kerry, Abu Mazen. They are tough negotiations. The issues are profound. Obviously, if they were easy, they would have been resolved many years ago, but I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu has approached these negotiations with a level of seriousness and commitment that reflects his leadership and the desire for the Israeli people for peace. It's my belief that ultimately it is still possible to create two states, a Jewish state of Israel and a state of Palestine, in which people are living side by side in peace and security. But it's difficult and it requires compromise on all sides. And I just want to publicly again commend the Prime Minister for the seriousness with which he's taken these discussions.
Here's Netanyahu on the same topic of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process.
The 20 years that have passed since Israel entered the peace process have been marked by unprecedented steps that Israel has taken to advance peace. I mean, we vacated cities in Judea and Samaria. We left entirely Gaza. We've not only frozen settlements, we've uprooted entire settlements. We've released hundreds of terrorist prisoners, including dozens in recent months. And when we look at what we got in return, it's been scores of suicide bombers, thousands of rockets on our cities, fired from the areas we vacated, and just incessant Palestinian incitement against Israel. So Israel has been doing its part, and I regret to say that the Palestinians haven't. Now, I know this flies in the face of conventional wisdom, but it's the truth. And the people of Israel know that it's the truth because they've been living it. What they want is peace. What we all want fervently is peace. Not a piece of paper, although that too, but a real peace, a peace that is anchored in mutual recognition of two nation states that recognize and respect one another, and solid security arrangements on the ground.
Netanyahu went on from the Oval Office to speak at the annual conference of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, where he spoke in some detail about precisely the kind of peace deal he'd be willing to agree to with Palestine.
Ladies and gentlemen, peace is Israel's highest aspiration. I'm prepared to make a historic peace with our Palestinian neighbors. A peace that would end a century of conflict and bloodshed. Peace would be good for us. Peace would be good for the Palestinians. But peace would also open up the possibility of establishing formal ties between Israel and leading countries in the Arab world. That's why I want to thank the indomitable John Kerry. You know, New York and Tel Aviv, they're the cities that never sleep. John Kerry is definitely the Secretary of State who never sleeps. And I've got the bags under my eyes to prove it. We're working together, literally, day and night, to seek a durable peace, a peace anchored in solid security arrangements and the mutual recognition of two nation states. Just as Israel is prepared to recognize a Palestinian state, the Palestinians must be prepared to recognize a Jewish state. So if this peace is to be more than a brief interlude between wars, Israel needs long-term security arrangements on the ground to protect the peace and to protect Israel if the peace unravels.
Netanyahu's breakdown of precisely what he's looking for in a peace deal went into several paragraphs of detail on those topics. One could look at that as a suggestion that Netanyahu believes a peace deal is closer than he believes it has been in the past, and that he's now negotiating the details, in part with outreach to his supporters in the United States. There was one interesting moment at the end of his discussion of an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal when he said this.
So as we work in the coming days, in the coming weeks, to forge a durable peace, I hope that the Palestinian leadership will stand with Israel and the United States on the right side of the moral divide, the side of peace, reconciliation, and hope. Well, you can clap. You want to encourage them to do that. I do, and I know you do too.
That hesitation to applaud a peace deal on behalf of the audience at AIPAC led JTA Washington correspondent Ron Campius to post on Twitter, "Never imagined an AIPAC crowd to Bibi's right." Netanyahu also felt compelled to speak out against the so-called Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, or BDS, again in some detail. Coming so soon after the controversy over actress Scarlett Johansson's role as a spokesperson for SodaStream, Netanyahu's comments could be read as a suggestion that his government is feeling some pressure on these issues. Meanwhile, on the topic of women representing Jewish institutions, a pair of basketball players at Yeshiva University's Stern College for Women are making waves. Meredith Gansman reports.
Yeshiva University Stern College senior Rebecca Yosher remembers growing up in Houston, Texas, and playing basketball with her family every Shabbat. But as a captain and forward on the YU women's basketball team, Shabbat is one time you won't find Yosher competing on the court.
I'm lucky, but because I've only played basketball at Jewish institutions, I've never really had to worry about compromising any of my Jewish beliefs for basketball.
Yosher's garnered recognition beyond the Jewish world of sports, rebounding an average 16 points a game, more than anyone in all of men and women's Division III college basketball.
I'm very tall, and also we have some very good boxer outers on our team, so that's really important, and yeah, the combination of the two is good.
Crediting her teammates reflects Yosher's modesty, but also recognizes that the Stern College basketball team is beginning to make a name for itself, under the guidance of coach Nesta Felix. In her second year in the position, she said coaching an all-Jewish basketball team has been a unique learning experience.
Cultural exchange has been amazing. They're very receptive. I'm very receptive. They share openly. They're like my daughters, my sisters. It's just a wonderful sharing experience. There's nothing that I can't say to them and they can't say to me. Even in recruiting, we make jokes about. I'm like, okay, so do you think I should recruit Ashkenazi or Ashkenazi? So it's nice being able to have those kind of jokes and just learning, absolutely learning. And I'm from a Christian background, so even culturally and with Torah studies, it's a lot of fun and just a lot of learning.
Focusing on team performance, this season the team won 7 of its 18 games, up from 5 wins of the 20 games in the previous season. And junior Stephanie Greenberg thinks they have the potential to do even better.
We've been growing since the beginning of the season, and I think we're almost there. We just need to get a little bit stronger.
Clearly this team has the skill, but what they're going to work on next season is having the confidence to win.
When we come out, we assume we're the underdogs. We have to get rid of that mentality, know that we are good, and we have to represent that.
To see more from the Yeshiva University Stern College women's basketball team, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. Finally this week, many have heard of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, but until now, no one has taken a complete and critical look at his philosophy. Shai Held does so in his new book, Abraham Joshua Heschel, The Call of Transcendence. My interview with Shai Held is part of this week's episode of Up Close. Also in this week's episode of Up Close on the Jewish Channel, BuzzFeed reporter Jessica Meisner talks about her visit to a Christian fashion week, and I speak with Wall Street veteran Simon Lack about his take on why some of the safest investments of the past might not be so anymore. Here are some of the highlights from my interview with Shai Held. With this book, with a project like this focusing on Heschel, Heschel is in many ways one of the more popular rabbis, one of the more popular philosophers of the 20th century Judaism. And he's got a legacy that endures in a particular way in the Jewish community. And I'm wondering, in working on this book, you must have had a great many conversations with a great many people about Heschel. And what is your sense of what makes him popular in the Jewish community?
And I think what makes Heschel such an interesting figure is that for him it really is about the marriage of worshiping God, Avodat Hashem, and the quest for social justice. It's about worshiping a God who tells you, what about the widows and the orphans? What about the widows and the orphans? A lot of social justice talk in the Jewish community, certainly not all, but a lot of it is fairly secular or secularized. That is not Heschel's voice at all.
So his idea essentially is that not just charity, but a sense of caring for others, a sense of involvement with others, is part of the everyday. And one of the interesting things he does with that is he says that all the mitzvot, all the commandments, all the different ritual aspects of Judaism are ways of exposing oneself or of inviting in God's presence, and that since God is so abundantly concerned for others, that one develops a greater concern for others through these activities.
Right. So the ideal picture, when religion works, which is always a big caveat in conversations about religion, when religion works, a way of saying this perhaps is the line between worshiping God and caring more deeply for others is almost totally obliterated, right? Because the more I serve God, the more I realize that God keeps telling me, right, go back and love more, go back and love more deeply. You want to love me, love whom I love. That's the constant preoccupation. It's also maybe important to say, it's a profoundly this-worldly understanding of religion, right? That is to say, a God who tells you, you want to serve me, don't leave the world behind. Don't go into the Beit Midrash, the Jewish study hall, and forget the world entirely. That study hall is supposed to tell you how to function more deeply and more presently in this world.
And one of the things that makes Heschel so beloved is not just his ideas, but the way he presented them.
One of the main things he's trying to do as a writer is evoke rather than just convince, right? And that's actually about heart opening and not just mind expanding. And that's very, very fundamental to what he's doing as a writer. However, one of the reasons I wrote this book is that I think that he has been in some ways a victim of his own eloquence. That is, very often in the American Jewish community, he is treated as effectively a Jewish Bartlett's, right? A font of aphorisms that people go to for great quotes. And there's some legitimacy to that. He wrote like that, right? So on some level, he, as it were, asked for it. But I think what's often lost is there is a really coherent, powerful interpretation of the whole Jewish tradition and of what it means to be a religious person. And I felt that that was very rarely drawn out for people.
You can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish channel on cable. You can also listen to the full audio of Up Close as a podcast available on iTunes or in your favorite podcast player. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Cable Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and on Comcast in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.